All right, so we are going to begin, and before we get into all of this insightful information, I want to just give a message of gratitude and unity. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the many social workers nationwide who have come together to support those impacted by the Los Angeles fires. Your dedication and compassion are truly inspiring. We want to thank our CEO, Dr. Anthony Estreet, Heidi McIntosh, our COO, and Dr. Gwen, our Mississippi NASW Executive Director, for their relentless support and guidance throughout this effort. Your leadership is making a profound difference. And to the many NASW chapters nationwide and national staff who have supported the California chapter and Californians and its entirety, a heartfelt thank you. I also want to take this time to thank my staff, leaders, and coalition builders here at the NASW California chapter for their hard work and dedication to this chapter. When I began my journey as executive director, I vowed that this chapter would be committed and innovated, work relentlessly to protect vulnerable communities, and be forward thinkers. I am inspired by the California chapter, as you should as members, and was dedicated to ensuring that the California chapter sets the bar as leaders across the state. And this is precisely what we did while organizing this response. Just to give some clarity, this town hall will be recorded for those who wish to support but cannot attend tonight. If you need closed caption, please scroll down to the bottom of the screen and click the Show Caption button. If it's not there, click the More button and select Closed Caption. For transcripts, please click on the arrow next to the closed caption and select Full Transcript. You may also use the closed caption feature to select an alternative language. For staff assistance, please direct any message to host or panelists. Welcome to the 2025 Social Worker Unite event. As we embark on the NASW-CA 2025 Fire and Disaster Response Mission, we unite as a unified social worker force to make a real impact. Tonight, you will learn how to support fire victims, navigate families and individuals affected, sign up to volunteer your services, access our website for vital resources, sign up for pro bono services, our mental health first aid response. But just to be clear, let's talk about role clarification. This mission is not intended to take the lead or supersede the efforts of FEMA and the Red Cross. FEMA and the Red Cross are the primary disaster response organization. Social Workers Unite is a coalition of social workers dedicated to supporting and uplifting our community members and the most vulnerable populations during this crisis. Social work is the heart of justice and support. Environmental justice is social work. Mental health mobilization is social work. Who better to respond to chaos and despair than social workers? NASW is social work, and together we are critical to the response and recovery efforts. I appreciate your commitment to making a difference. Tiara, if you can introduce the first slide.
I want to say thank you, Kimberly, for those kind words. And I would like to introduce everyone to Kimberly Wormsley, a licensed social worker who is our dedicated advocate for social justice and equality as the executive director of NASW California. With a rich career in clinical social work and community leadership, Kimberly works tirelessly to uplift the profession and create impactful change for California's social workers and the communities they serve. I would also like to introduce our Director of Members and Communications, Dr. Tiana Charles. We also have our Jared Stalso, who is part of the members and communications marketing department as well, who is who is our manager of member services. And we also have, and I believe I saw her. Yes, we also have Tatiana, who is our coordinator, and we also have Ariane, who is on here, who is our MSW intern, and myself, Tiara Palumbo, who is the marketing communications coordinator.
And while we get started, I just want to point out and thank my co-navigator, Dr. Gwen Haynes. She, again, is on the screen, and she is the Executive Director of the NASW Mississippi Chapter. So without further ado, the NASW California Chapter we will be working to provide essential education, mental health resources, and supportive services to help individuals and communities navigate the recovery process. Our commitment is to address both the immediate and long-term needs of those impacted, ensuring they receive the care and assistance they require and or need. So here are some of our objectives. One, we want to ensure that there is inclusive disaster response. And how will we do this? We will ensure that we are leading a culturally rooted, trauma informed, neurodiversive, and inclusive response to ongoing disasters in California. We are working to support our marginalized community, leveraging NASW-CA's strength in disaster leadership to support all communities, especially marginalized and Spanish-speaking population. Cultural competent recovery. We will work to facilitate coordinated disaster response and long-term recovery strategies, focusing on culturally competent, multilingual support, and neurodiversive inclusion. Key components. 1, strong leadership and coordination. 2, a trauma-informed response coordination. 3, navigation of emergency services. 4, collaboration with FEMA and Red Cross. 5, statewide emergency disaster response organization. 6, targeting underserved communities. And 7, a continuous assessment to seek out ways that we can improve this disaster response. Leadership and coordination. So once again, the NASW is the largest chapter within the country. Therefore, we have an extensive list of membership networking opportunities, not only within the chapter, but across the nation. We have worked extensively to ensure that we're mobilizing social workers across the country, administrators, and volunteers to thoroughly not only assess, but to implement strategic planning and coordination. Collaborative task force. At this time, with your partnership, with your attendance now in real time, we are working to form a task force with NASW members and diverse professionals to oversee operations. We will work to ensure leadership reflects California's demographic and diversity. California is the most diverse state in the country, so the social workforce needs to be reflective of that diversity. Last and not least, job satisfaction. Engage NASW-CA members in assessing needs and setting recovery goals. And last but not least, ensure culturally rooted and comprehensive disaster responses. And I just want to really name that this response and this recovery will not happen overnight. And so we are already projecting the longevity that it will take to restore hope and provide the services and needs of Californians, especially in the Southern California region. Next slide. Trauma-informed response and coordination. Again, ensuring that every response and every step that we take, we're always thinking about cultural competency. So ensuring that we are also working to assure that there is a multilingual perspective, a neurodiverse perspective, and a trauma response to all care provided. We're also working in real time to equip social workers and volunteers that are Spanish speaking. Also developing very specific tailored resources and strategies for our neurodivisive population, including sensory friendly spaces, clear communication strategies, and mental health support. Lastly, psychological support. In this crisis, as clinicians and social workers, we know that the mental health crisis and the psychological crisis is ongoing. So we will work to ensure that psychoeducation and support is available not only to the victims, but also for those on the front line providing the support. And again, ensuring that these supports are offered in a multilingual perspective. Next slide. Navigations of emergency services. So, coming up very quickly, we are going to kind of walk you through with some of the resources that we have quickly facilitated and implemented, but ensuring that those resources are also ingrained and transcribed in other languages, including instruction and or support for applying for FEMA and Red Cross services. This is where the collaboration begins because we know that mistrust and distrust in communities of color is very real. So, working to ensure that we are on the ground with community based organizations that have the trust within the communities, especially with our vulnerable communities. We're also working to ensure that there is radio and social media and community events that also are specific to our communities of color and ensuring that there is accessibility and our places where these community members can access internet services. If you haven't followed us on social media, if you're not following us on social media, please do so. Next slide. Supporting FEMA and the Red Cross. Again, ensuring that there is equity in all of the services and support that FEMA and Red Cross are providing to all victims. So strengthening the collaboration and the partnership with all agencies that are currently on ground in real time. Next slide. Statewide Emergency Disaster Response Organization. Again, what is the strength of social workers? We love to build coalitions of social workers and community members. So tonight is our first step in developing what that coalition looks like. And what that looks like is you, I, and us working together to ensure that Los Angeles citizens and residents are supportive and feel inclusive during these response efforts. So, including proper preparedness across the state and building a healthy coalition of social workers. Next slide. Targeting underserved communities. I know that there has been conversations about individuals and communities that are impacted. We know that there was one city in particular where 80 to 90% of the community was decimated, and that is a very unfortunate circumstance. On the website, you will be able to access executive orders that have been set in place by the governor to ensure that these communities, with an emphasis of communities of color, are not victimized. They are not taken advantage of. We are hearing reports of price gouging and scams. So ensuring that relief efforts also includes education to these vulnerable communities so they are not taken advantage of. So that is part of the strategy setting efforts that we are making in collaboration with other agencies. And furthermore, as I stated earlier, this is a long journey to recovery. So we want to ensure, as the largest professional association chapter in the state, that we're also providing training opportunities for social workers and first line responders so they are equipped to work with our vulnerable community members and population. Next slide. Well, as always, as social workers, we're constantly assessing for ways to improve. So this means regular checkups, regular surveys. We want to formulate and orchestrate focus groups, town hall meetings, informational sessions, and actively engage community members to measure the success in areas and ways to improve this crisis response. Next slide. In conclusion, NASW is committed to ensuring the support of all communities through a culturally rooted, trauma-informed, and inclusive response. We will continue to leverage our extensive network, resources, and expertise. We will lead effective disaster response and long-term recovery efforts for all, particularly marginalized and Spanish-speaking populations. Together, we will create a stronger and more resilient California for all. Next slide. All right, so this is the fun part. So our membership director, Tiana Charles, is going to bring up some of the resources that have been facilitated by social workers to and for our communities. And she will also provide a little insight to our 800 number. Take it away, Tiana.
Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Tiana Charles, the Director of Membership and Communications. And so, Tiara, if you can pull up that website for me, I'd appreciate it. We have been collecting resources over the last week to help assist. And with that, we were able to create this website for everyone to share to get some of the information out. First, we wanted to go ahead and post all of the executive orders that has come through. I know there was actually one that came through today, and we'll get that listed as well. Because it's important to know the different executive orders. Thank you so much. It's important to know the executive orders that's going through so that way you're more aware because, of course, informed social workers help best. And so we also have links for the emergency services in the area, in the different mobile apps, as well as to how to find shelters in the area and animal care assistance. And then mutual aid has a really great resource here of a lot of different things. So from donation drives to free items, and they are trying their best to keep it updated. But of course, with crisis, things change moments by moment. So we have that. And then also mental health as well. So I actually don't have the list of therapists on here. And the reason why is because we wanted to make sure that our social workers get billed first. So we do have the list of social workers going up soon. And so if you are willing to provide pro bono work in that area, whether it's virtual or in person, please fill out the form so that way we can get you listed. And then also just how to talk to your kids about this. Because while wildfires happen in California, it's not as often that you have to talk to your kids about destruction in this way. And so we wanted to make sure that you guys have the tips on how to talk to your children, how to cope with it. And then at the bottom of this website is the different ways that you can help. So as I just mentioned, pro bono services, and you can sign up with this link. We will be in the California area or the Los Angeles area from January 20th to January 24th, with providing those navigation services that Kimberly mentioned earlier. And so if you are in the area and want to help volunteer, you can sign up with this link. Also, again, we're looking for people who speak all different um, languages. So please, if you speak any other language than English, sign up so that we can help people. Um, other ways, other ways to provide support outside of that week, you can go to the Red Cross or you can go to the SoCal Mutual Aid website, and they do a pretty good job with keeping updated what the needs are currently. If you want to donate, if you can't get down there, if you want to donate, we did find a few master lists on how to help financially. We always say that if you want to donate financially, do your research on who you're donating to, whether it's the organization or the individual. We are not liable for any of the scams that's going through. We just want to help. These lists did come from the mutual aid, so they were vetted. But again, we cannot control whose GoFundMe is where. And then of course, if we have any social workers that was impacted, please let us know so we can help the best way we can. Um, those forms will, it asks specifically if there's anything specific that they need, whether it's helping rebuild or close or things like that. So please let us know so we can reach out to those social workers and provide support. So, as I mentioned, NASW California staff will be in the Los Angeles area from January 20th to January 24th. And during that time, we will have a hotline, so that way people can call and we can help directly. That hotline is going to be 888-797-NASW. And so that will be there. And I just saw that somebody is mentioning that they cannot find this on our website. Actually, you can either click on this banner and it'll take you right there, or you can go to news from the main page and it'll take you there. So that is how you can get to the resources. Now we do have time for questions. If you guys want to put questions in the chat, and I'll hand it back to Kimberly.
Thank you, Tiana. If we can also drop the volunteer links in the chat. Some of us are here in where are we at? No, we're in Long Beach. We're in Long Beach now. So many of us will be deploying to some of the communities to begin canvassing and providing information to communities that have been impacted. And I just kind of want to name, like, once again, this is not to duplicate or take over FEMA or Red Cross. We do understand that they are the lead agency. However, we are still social workers and we have that connection to communities. Social workers are one of the most trusted professions out there, period, in the story. And so I just want to just bring up that trust level. We do have resource pamphlets that we will be disseminating in the community with QR codes and steps that people can take to apply for benefits and services. But if Tiana and Tiara, if you can drop the 4 surveys that we created in the chat so that people can have that opportunity to sign up. So once again, we are looking for therapists to provide pro bono services. If you live in California and you are licensed in California, you can provide the pro bono services. If you have an associate license in California, you can provide that pro bono clinical services. If you live outside of California, of which many people outside of the state have reached out and want to provide that services, you cannot provide clinical services per via BBS standards. However, you can provide mental health first aid and navigation support using our website to provide resources and information that may be critical for those victims and families that have been impacted. Please do consider joining up for a shift to answer the phone lines and provide information in real time. We do have dedicated iPads available for volunteers to use during a shift. And you do have the autonomy to tell us if and when you are available. And I do also want to elevate the multilingual aspect. So we are looking for social workers who do speak other languages to be on call and available. And in terms of canvassing areas and going out to the communities, we are only going out to those communities that are currently contained and safe for us to approach and or probe. Jared, any questions in the chat?
You answered quite a few of them, which were a lot of the questions that were coming in were related to how working remotely. There was someone who asked if we're not licensed in California but have an LCSW and is willing to provide teletherapy, can we still sign up? But you've answered a lot of those questions. So there were quite a few that were asking about virtual opportunities and volunteering that way. But
Looks like Cheryl has her hand up.
yeah, sure. If you want to ask your question. Okay. I just received a question that says, I signed up yesterday. How long until I hear back just so that I can prepare?
So I'm thinking that the turnaround for response is maybe 28 to 48 hours. I do want to also elevate, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we have received an abundant amount of individuals that want to volunteer, who's seeking out information, who's seeking out education, and the staff have been working around the clock to respond to those individuals. So just please provide us a little grace and time, but we are working as quickly and swiftly as we can while being short-staffed at the same time.
Going back through some of the questions, there was a question from Steph, and it was about the sign-up form. Asked if we could discuss in more detail what we'd be committed to, we'd be committing to with the question, what area are you most interested in volunteering with? And more specifically, can we choose the number of hours we're able to commit?
Absolutely, volunteers have autonomy about the time that they want to volunteer, the day that they want to volunteer, the roles that they would like to volunteer. So, rather it is answering phone calls, rather it is supporting social workers who are also on the front line that may need support. I think that there's an abundant amount of volunteerism that can happen and needs to happen. We would also like to check it's emergency shelters and designated relocations areas in the region to see how we can donate goods and diapers and feminine products and baby formula, things of that caliber. We are working to request those donations as well. I guarantee you that you will have a role or a volunteer position. So again, navigating, providing the resources, providing the support, the pro bono clinical services or mental health first aid, and also just checking in with the schools within this area to discern the level of impact, not only of social worker students, but also students across the board.
We have a question from, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Susanna. It says, are there volunteer opportunities for MSW students?
Yes. You do not necessarily have to be licensed to be a provider in some caliber. You can still be a social worker. You can still be a student social worker. You can be a student, but we are looking for volunteers on all levels.
Somebody just mentioned, and I do think it's important while we're talking about people providing support on the LSW or LCSW level, please, please, please lobby for the social work compact, because if we had a compact in place,
Yep.
you would be able to help us in that way. So wherever you are, make sure that you are lobbying for legislation in your area. And if you're in California, let's come to lead.
We'll
So
be
that we
talking
can
about it
help.
during lead.
Thursday the 23rd. Thursday the 23rd.
Just
So
so it is shameless plug.
We received a question from Amanda. Is there a way we can provide / donate items such as toys, journals, stuffed animals, arts and crafts, games, which can help children to process and support their grief, but also let them feel some sense of normalcy?
Very good question. I will also caution folks, as I've been here for 24 hours, a lot of shelters are not accepting clothing donation at this time. So I would caution that. I'm not sure what the standards are for like stuffed animals, maybe gently used games, books. There have been a lot of schools that also have been impacted in the area as well that probably could utilize those donations as well. And let's also keep in mind as staff continue to monitor the needs in Los Angeles, teachers are now scrambling to be creative in how they try to ensure that their students find some normalcy. So I think that the educational perspective and that framework is a critical discussion. And as a chapter, we will continue to have those critical conversation about critical information to provide to our members. I would encourage you all to continue to follow us on social media because we are posting critical information every day. And as we know in a crisis, that critical information can change on a day-to-day basis.
So, got a few questions coming. One came from Linda that says, do you have to be a member of NASW in order to volunteer?
No, well, we would love for you to be a member. We can talk about that offline, but you do not have to be a member in order to volunteer.
Okay. Lost for a second. Question from Steph. Thank you. Can you please also talk a bit more about what the commitment is with offering pro bono therapy? For example, if we volunteer for this, will we be linked with clients, or will clients contact us directly via a database? Is there a number suggested of pro bono sessions offered per client?
Yeah, maybe can you take that one?
Sorry, hold on. What was the question?
That's okay. There's a question from Steph. It says, can you please talk a little bit more about what the commitment is regarding offering pro bono therapy? So, for example, if we volunteer for this, will we be linked directly with clients, or will clients contact us directly via database? And is there a suggested number of pro bono sessions offered per client?
Yeah, so NASW California is not responsible for any shifts that you pick up pro bono. You are in control of what that looks like. So I would, before you volunteer, I would really think about what your time commitment is and provide that in your first session with them. So if you want to just provide short-term support for whatever clients that you pick up, that needs to be part of your initial assessment and session with them. So you are responsible for whatever clients that you pick up, just as if they were a client coming into your practice.
All right, we have a question from Megan that says, have there been any considerations for how to effectively reach individuals impacted by the fires who may be hesitant to seek support due to fears related to the upcoming presidential administration and threat of deportation?
I'll take that one, folks. Sorry, my computer was dying. So on Wednesday, specifically on Wednesday, we are sorry. Okay, sorry about that. My computer was dying. So from Wednesday to Friday, we will be emphasizing our efforts to Spanish-speaking communities. We will have a few Spanish-speaking social workers here, and we will be deploying into communities that are highly dense with Spanish-speaking communities. We also have been in contact and communication with churches that also are focusing on Spanish-speaking community members and those who may have some issues with immigration. So we are extremely aware. I think that that's where the conversation we were kind of going about the mistrust and distrust. So we know that these are opportunities that do exist in real time, and we continue to strategize to ensure that we are responding in a way that is culturally rooted and culturally competent.
We have another question from Leonard. Are there any evening to late night volunteering shifts available as well?
So as it relates to organizing and strategizing, I think that we also are very caution about our own mental health and wellness. So I see probably closing it out about 7:30 if you want to do some in-person strategy and support for these efforts. As it relates to the canvassing and going to the communities directly, I would cautious any type of deployment with social workers to cut off before sundown because we want to ensure that we are safe and also realistic in what our capacity, may be if we're responding at too late at night. So I think that at our location that we're in, we can probably cut it off about 7:30 or 8. I also want to name for those social workers who are also on the call. It's a lot to create graphics and design. That is another specialty that we're looking at. So if you are a social worker or individual that has specific skill set in graphic design, please let us know because I know that my two girls to the right, Tiana and Tierra, are sick of me because they be up all night long doing them graphics and design. So if you do have that specialty, please let us know. Next week, we want to really double down on some of our marketing, our graphics, and messaging, and also empower self-care, having graphic and design related to vicarious trauma, talking about trauma-informed care, and anxiety. We also have to be honest about what's happening in California. California this is not new. We know that, what is it, 2003, I think? Remember the Paradise Fires? There was a lot of similarities to what is happening now. And I've been reached out by social workers who deployed during that time frame that are feeling a little anxious about what is happening in Southern California. So we really want to complement and uplift a mental health. And I don't know. I want to call it not an initiative, like a mental health campaign to give individuals self-care tips and ways that they can take care of themselves during these difficult times. Okay, I see Anna Hernandez says she will be happy to help with marketing.
Yes.
And yes, we're gonna grab your name. I'm gonna use my personal phone number.
We've got about 15 minutes left since this was scheduled from 6 to 7. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to drop them either in the chat or raise your hand and we'll do our best to answer them.
And so also, I know y'all caught me off guard last time, but the link to the LA Fire Resources is on the website and it will be under news. So if you, for whatever reason, cannot see the banner when you first log in to the website or not log in, but log on to the website, it will be under news.
Also, I am going to drop our main email address as well. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns post this event, please do email us. Also, I believe our main line was and is on the PowerPoint presentation as well.
I just had somebody say if I'm interested in an NASW student membership, where can I go? So I just said, email me and I will send you all the info.
Perfect.
All right. Or Dr. Charles.
Oh, I just dropped our email address, and there's our email address, there's our phone number. So there is no reason that folks on this line cannot uh, contact us. And then I see Megan's
Yeah.
question. I think at this time in real time we are not. There's no you need to be this type of social worker or not. I think Tiana named something very critical about leveling up the compact licensure legislation that California has not signed on to. So that is definitely a micro practice concern. I will say that there are some concerns about what the status of FEMA will look like in the next week or two. And then also naming that currently there are 24,000 FEMA applications that are specific to Los Angeles region. So that also tells me that we are still struggling as a community, country, and state with even people understanding what is FEMA? What do they do? What do they provide? And what we do hope as we continue to navigate these communities and educate communities is that we are educating them of the services and possible ways that FEMA and Red Cross can support them during their hard times and the critical times that we are in.
Got a few more questions in our Q&A section. What is mental health first aid regarding volunteering?
Well, you have to be trained in mental health first aid, and it is a training. I'm not sure if we even have that training on Empower Ed. That is a good question. Ariane, can you check that out on the Empower Ed to see if that is a possibility? But mental health first aid is a technique that most of the time, people who are non-clinical take, meaning that they're not licensed necessarily, but not saying that if you're licensed, you can't take it because it's a great training. But this is a way to provide individuals who are first line responders, giving them an opportunity to understand like language, a body language that you should use when you are responding to crisis. So when a person is in a crisis, sometimes they may be emotional and may need a different way of questions being framed to them because they are in a crisis. So a good question or an example of that would be like, what are you feeling, or how can I help, or giving them some cues to do some relaxation techniques, because when you're in the middle of a crisis, sometimes you're not always at your baseline. So ensuring that the way that you're answering, the way that you're engaging with community members, again, is trauma informed and culturally rooted, especially during these critical times. I've been watching news clips ever since this crisis has occurred, and to see people break down on the news because they have lost homes that they have lived for 45 and 55 years, intergenerational wealth loss. You're going to probably come across individuals who are devastated, for lack of better words, about what is happening to them. I don't know if Tiana wants. She has her license. If you want to add anything else that I may have missed.
Yeah, I think you covered it.
There's two questions that I think that they kind of go hand in hand. So I wonder you could kind of get them both at the same time. But there's one question in our Q&A that says, "How can we help with housing? Many people are going to be in need of apartments, affordable intermediate housing." And then there's another question in the chat that says, "Are you all hearing that many families are trying to relocate out of state or out of the area? I live in Vegas and know we have many families that move back and forth. We are wondering if we may expect lots of families."
I think that there's a housing crisis across the United States. I know that Los Angeles region has its challenges. I know that the governor is looking at other possibilities and avenues to expand housing development, not only because of the fires, but other critical aspects of what's going on. We have a huge homeless population in the state as well. So I think that people are trying to figure it out and make sense of what is happening. And I would not blame anyone for thinking about relocating, but I don't think I can answer that question per se because I'm not in that predicament. But if I were, I think I would be thinking of every possibility that I can take to seek shelter.
There were a couple questions that came in. I'm going to try to get through as many of these as we can in the next few minutes. Megan replied and said, "Sorry, I think what I meant to ask was, considering the effects of global warming and knowing that its impact will likely worsen over time, is the NASW currently involved in any macro level policy initiatives or advocacy efforts focused on long-term planning rather than crisis response?"
I think that even this crisis response is long term planning, because I think that we need to be long term planning on how we develop housing. We need to be long term planning how we draw electricity for communities. So the California chapter and the entire association are constantly looking at ways to become more proactive in elevating legislation that is reflective of what's happening in real time. Just know that the chapter does endorse and support as many bills as we possibly can. I will also name that how we move as a chapter is also up to you all as members and social workers who make the chapter. We cannot move legislation and or really create environments that is conducive to social work unless we have social workers alongside of us making that happen.
Got another question that says, "Can you provide guidance on professional liability insurance for LCSWs that do not have a private practice?"
Are you a NASW member? Because if you're a member, you're in good hands because you can get a policy through the NASW. Secondly, you can also just look at any type of liability insurance provider that does offer malpractice. I think I pay like $100 a month for my malpractice insurance, you may also seek out potentially like a 1 month policy or 2 month policy as well. Tiana, do you have any direct information on the insurance policy that we offer as members? Or do you, Dr. Where's Dr. Gwen? Do you, Dr. Gwen? Okay. We can follow up with you though.
Yes, because we actually have our meeting on Tuesday. So
I am a member. I've had my insurance since the beginning of time, so I did not choose to utilize NASW's insurance. I have my own that I've had for a minute.
Someone just let us know that the pro bono form and the volunteer forms do not ask for our contact information. So we should amend that. And then I have a question. I have a coworker who is a LPC who speaks Spanish. How could he help? We are in LA. Check out checking out that volunteer form is the best resource for situations like that. And then I am a trauma informed question from Stephanie. I am a trauma informed and disaster trained. If I work with someone pro bono, is it okay to work with them outside of crisis intervention and do more trauma oriented work with them?
Go ahead, Tiana. You look like you want to
So
answer.
hold on, let's go back because you flew past one. So the pro bono form does ask for your information in multiple different ways. One of the ways is how can families contact you? It also asks for your website. So it does ask that information. And then the volunteer sign up. Let me see. We will add that, but you can put it in your additional ideas to support until we get there. Thank you for letting us know about that one. Okay, what was the last question?
That's okay. Sorry. We have it says it's from Stephanie. I am trauma informed and disaster trained. If I work with someone pro bono, is it okay to work with them outside of crisis intervention and do more trauma oriented work with them?
I mean, I would say, do you feel like you can ethically work with them based on the training that you have? I mean, I don't think that we can directly say yes or no. Do you feel like you can work with them and have the capacity to do it?
And then the last question I have, because we got 2 minutes left, is from Joe in the main chat. I'm a clinical social worker in Massachusetts. While I realize I cannot provide clinical services in California, are there any opportunities for me to help?
Yes. So, Joe, you can help by signing up to just be a social worker and help navigate services, looking at our website, and also coordinating any questions or concerns that you may have with those that you are providing the support to back to the chapter. So, we are definitely looking at and seeking individuals that can help with the navigation aspect of this crisis that we're currently experiencing.
And that is all I've got.
Well, we thank you for your time, your dedication, your commitment to these efforts. Please do share our information on social media. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and we do Blue Sky, right? Are we about to?
Blue Sky.
We do go ahead. Okay. These are opportunities to share our posts, to provide us insight, to provide us information that we have or may have missed. Please do sign up to volunteer. We are in Long Beach as we speak, looking for volunteers to come out and support us during these critical times. We thank you, and as social workers together, we are united to support our fellow neighbors and community members in Los Angeles. I thank you for your time and have a good night.